Namaste, good morning. Welcome to today's episode. Uh, Today, I wanted to talk about a very important vitamin that our body needs, and that's vitamin B12. I think that has become one of the most talked about or researched or looked after vitamin these days. See, vitamin B12 is also known as cobalamin. Okay, cobalamin. So it's a water soluble vitamin. When you say water soluble, that means for it to get absorbed, dissolved, and absorbed in a body, it only needs water. The other mode is a lot of vitamins need fat. So if your diet is deprived of fat, you will not absorb those or you will not synthesize those vitamins. Whereas B12, you only need water. So that means its absorption is faster in the body. Okay, and that also means the body will not retain it for a longer time. Now, why B12 is important? And I think more than important, it's very critical for our body. So let's understand why. See, B12 is important because it helps metabolism of every cell. Okay, means the cellular function that happens. Okay, the ability of our cells to get all the information from the food, environment, the situation we are, work properly and ensure that we are healthy, happy, we react, we respond in a better manner, or the synthesis at a cellular level happens properly. And for that, we need vitamin B12. Okay. It also impacts the DNA structure. So we all know everybody is unique, all those 23 chromosomes and DNA. And DNA is basically our the book which tells how we are and who we are and what we are. So it improves or it impacts the synthesis. Now, if DNA ends, starts to change, that's where the problem occurs. Okay, we know that we get whatever food we eat, whether it is a carb, it's a protein, or it's a fat. It gets broken down into the carb gets broken down into sugar, which gets metabolized and used or stored. Excuse me. Versus fat and protein. So fat gets broken down into fatty acids and protein into amino acids in the body. Now, B12 helps synthesis of fatty acids and amino acids. That means if vitamin B12 is less in the body, you will not be able to absorb or synthesize whatever fat you are eating and whatever protein you are eating. So that makes it a very important and a crucial vitamin. It is required in a very small quantity in a body. It's like 0.24 is the requirement per day. So this means it is highly potent. So ability to the requirement is less versus the action that it does is very high. So it's a very strong vitamin. It is most importantly needed for the nervous system. So the way our nervous system respond, or the way our cognitive behaviors are, the way we react, the way the brain thinks or respond, is also controlled by B12, because it controls the nerves. Okay, so if you look at what has happened is Alzheimer, dementia, the brain related health issues which are arising, or which have we started listening about it. Okay, this has become very common or a norm. And it has also to do with relation that now our bodies are deprived of B12. Okay, so there's a clear connection between how B12 can impact the brain health. So what happens is B12, it is absorbed in our gut. It is absorbed in the ileum, the colon area of our body. Okay, it is stored in our liver. Okay, our body does not store it forever, so we need to have constant input, or we need to consume B12 regularly in our diet. Now, a half shelf life is around 6 days. Okay, so that means it's around 12 days before it can, once it is metabolized, it can move out, or the body will get depleted of it in around 10 to 12 days. In the liver, it can be stored up to 400 odd days. okay, before it gets metabolized or required. So there are some people who don't eat enough, but the liver's ability to store it is very very high as compared to few other individuals. Now B12, unlike other vitamins and minerals, the B12 is only made by organism. So that means people who are vegetarian or who are vegan, who does not take food that has got organism, okay, or the live food that we call, would be deprived of B12, or they'll not get enough B12 in their food. Now, how does organism comes? Because organisms are found in the non-vegetarian food that we eat. So it's not that the animal make B12. What happens is bacteria and archaea, which gets absorbed in the gut and which forms B12, are found on the grass. So grass-fed animals, so not the cage born animals, but the grass-fed animals, when they eat it, it gets into their intestine, it gets absorbed, it multiplies, and it makes a colony, and that's where B12 is formed. And when we consume, we get the traces of it. So what happened is people moved to new things of not eating organ meat, not eating grass-fed, and going towards more of a cage-born and bred animals, and that's where B12 started to deplete. Now, what happens is B12 gets for B12 to be absorbed properly, no matter if you're taking, whether you're taking it in form of a supplement or in terms of food, you need to have a very strong stomach acid. Okay, so the B12, what happens is when the B12 reacts, or when it reaches our stomach and through the food, the stomach acid produces what is called an intrinsic factor. Now what happens is this intrinsic factor binds to this B12 and moves it to the gut. Okay, now where it stays in the gut and it gets absorbed in the gut. So for no matter if you are taking a non-vegetarian diet or a grass-fed diet, if your stomach acid is low, that means chances of you retaining this B12 would be lesser. Okay, now who are the people who don't have, or who tend to have lesser B12? Okay, so while it can be low for everyone, the reference range, because it's a very small quantity required, shows somewhere around 200 to 900 as a range. But always try to keep your B12 in the upper third range, so somewhere around 500, 600. It's a good number to have, because the issues related to B12, especially the nervous disorder, which eventually leads to Alzheimer, dementia, you'll get to know about them some 10, 15, 20, 30 years when this disease has manifested. It has become full blown. It is not that it is early signs. We will not get to know about the signs of it. Now, who has less, who can have less B12? People who are on acid reflux medicine. So you have an acid reflux, you take a proton pump inhibitor, PPI, to bring down the acid levels. That suppressed acid levels means your ability to create intrinsic factor for B12 to get absorbed is reduced. People who take metformin, which is a medicine taken for insulin resistance, okay, those will have less B12 in the body. People who have low stomach acid. Okay, now low stomach acid, what happens is after age of 35, your stomach acid reduces a little bit. After 50 or 55, males or females, they have a 50% reduction in the stomach acid. So that means when you age, your ability to absorb and digest slows down naturally. It's a natural phenomenon. Now you need to ensure that your stomach acid is strong, and we have done several videos and blogs about how naturally you can increase your stomach acid. Let's say ginger tea is one of the best, apple cider vinegar is one of the best things to increase stomach acid. Stomach acid is also increased when you do fasting. Okay, stomach acid is also increased when you slowly eat. So we have talked about this in several other videos and in the blogs. So it'll be a good idea to go back and refer to them to understand how you can naturally increase your stomach acid. higher stomach acid means lower acid reflux as well. Okay. Now, what happens is, if your B12 is low, what are the some what are the important signals that your body can get? So you will be low on energy. So that means if B12 is high, your energy levels would be high. Your stamina would be low if your B12 is low. So opposite, as in high stamina if your B12 is high. Uh, your memory would be improved if your B12 is high. So that means memory loss or inability to think or make decisions, or there is a cloudy feeling around that, you don't understand what is happening in and around some moments. That's a sign that chances of B12 being low is very, very high. Cognitive behavior, the ability for your brain to think and react and act, which goes down in certain cases, is a clear sign of B12 deficiency, and it takes time to manifest. So you need to make intervention today to help you tomorrow. Chronic neuropathy, so people who got nerve pains, who got pain, especially numbness in your arm, in your fingertips, or numbness in your feet, because this is where the nerve endings are very, very small. And if B12 is less, the RBC, the red blood cell, are not formed. They're not synthesized properly. If they are not formed, they will not be able to go into the capillaries and reach to, or to the each ending. And that's where, if you have tingling sensation, you have numbness in your arms and your soles and feet, that's a clear sign that the body is needing more vitamin B12. If you have constant cold feet and cold hands, okay, that's also a sign that not enough blood is being circulated, because the red blood cells are big in size. When you look at the lab report, you get to know, and that is also a sign that somehow your B12 is less. So a lot of people say, I have a cold feet, cold hand. Yes, it can be because of thyroid issue, but if thyroid is normal, and if your hemoglobin is normal or the ferritin level is normal, then go back and understand that the connection is with B12. So if you're able to fix that, I think that will help. It also helps people who got non-allergic chronic cough. Okay, so B12 deficiency can lead to that. So it might be a good idea to check that. Kids who got a wheezing problem because of asthma, it is also because of B12 deficiency that they have. It also assists you to go into deep sleep mode. So you have stage 1 of sleep, stage 2 deep sleep, and REM stage. So B12 deficiency can lead to lesser deep sleep, and we all know how important sleep is for us, for our immunity and for everything that our body does. So what also happens is, with age, one of the signs that you can understand is that a body might be low on B12 is when you're observing people who are walking. So uneven balanced, inability to control their posture and walk straight or manage their balance. So unstable gait. So they limp walking, or they have the free flow is not there. So when you have this unstable gait, it is also a sign that the body is low on B12. You have journal fatigue throughout the day, because we talked that it is needed for the synthesis of cellular level. So if you're that is low, that means B12 might be low in your body. Blurred vision, sour tongue, mood swings, tinnitus, well, there's a tingling sound in your ear, constant. Okay, it's not because of any infection or something. It might be because the body is low on vitamin B12. Now, how we can improve? The best form is to have animal meat, but if because of your religion or because of your choice you are a vegetarian or a vegan, things like which there are food that helps to promote and retain that is so there are a lot of fortified food with B12. I am not a big advisor of fortified foods, but in some cases you need to take, and B12 is a good option. So anything which is fortified with B12 can be taken in some quantity. Fermented food, okay, kefir, kombucha, sauerkraut, kanji, pickled vegetables. So these are traditionally, they've got live organism in them, and they are a good source of our body to get B12 in traces amount, not in sufficient, but very trace amount. You also get it from nutritional yeast. Okay, so eating nutritional yeast can support retention and retaining of B12. Hemp seeds, hemp hearts. So they are another in the vegetarian source. They are the best to retain B12. In case that is not possible, and you might have to go to a supplement, so you get a couple of supplements. Always go for a supplement which says methyl, okay, which has methylcobalamin. So methylcobalamin is what you should opt for versus by any other, because that's the natural form of B12. So you can get it in tablet form, you can get in the drops form, you put it under your tongue. It is also given intravenous, in some cases acute, but majority of the cases it's a tablet or a powder, or it can also be a drop form. One of the best absorbed is either the tablet or a drop form. So maintaining B12, link it back to your stomach acid, link stomach acid back to your eating hygiene, link your eating hygiene to your lifestyle. So everything gets again linked in a circle form, saying that if you improve your lifestyle, you improve your eating habit. You look at reducing a lot of so-called processed food, adding more real food, eating on time, ensuring that the stomach acid is right. The absorption of B12 would be proper, and if B12 is proper, I think at a cellular level you will not have an issue. So ensure you manage to keep your levels optimum somewhere on the upper third of your reference range. Have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll catch up soon. Namaste.